Here are 4 things you absolutely need to know when upgrading cheap budget mountain bike. This bike costed me below $400. And if you want to go any further with the bike, making upgrades that actually make sense and they're not colorful zip ties, here you go. Number 1, your bottom bracket or the crankset. Most of the budget bikes will have so-called square tapered bottom bracket. And if you have square tapered bottom bracket, you need to buy square tapered crankset, which looks like this. Square goes onto square tapered axle. So the only thing to do here is to remove this cap, undo the nut, remove this triple crankset, and install 1 gear, because I'm going to be changing 3x7 into 1x9, and I already have the crankset that is compatible with the bottom bracket, with the axle. You can have higher models with integrated axles, with BSA Holotech system. Then you need to replace also the bottom bracket. It's not very expensive, but it's additional part you need to replace. So if you have square tapered, which on $400 bike you will probably have, but not always maybe, then you need to have square tapered crankset. Number 2 is what we're going to change here in the rear. This is 3x7 again, and I will have 1x9. I need to replace the cassette, and you want to have cassette and not the free wheel on your bike. So for Shimano, it will actually say cassette, or you will see some numbers and letters starting with CS, and CS will stand for cassette. When you see MF, it means it's a free hub, and instead of just sliding onto the free hub body of the hub, it's threaded. And you don't want to have threaded, because any upgrade will not be based on the free hub, it will be cassette, which is just put onto your hub. So if you don't want to replace the hub and lace the whole wheel, which is just too expensive for such a budget bike, it's great to have the cassette, because the only thing I need to do is to actually remove this cassette and place a new 9-speed cassette. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the fork. If you have a coil fork, the biggest problem with it is that you cannot adjust how hard or how soft it is. And if you weigh more than 90 kilos, I always say, this won't be enough for you. You need the air fork. So air spring inside. And in order to do that, you need to know whether your head tube is tapered or not. Tapered means smaller bearing up here, larger bearing down there. This one is actually straight. Even though there's this shaping, it's just for the design of the bike. I know that both bearings are the same. And the steering tube, which is actually the part of the fork, it's connected to this crown. It goes inside this dark blue head tube. It's straight. It's just as straight as these stanchions. And so I will look for straight and not tapered air fork with the steering tube, which is not tapered. And now, if you have tapered head tube, you can use straight steering tube with the adapter. But if you have straight head tube, which is the part of the frame, you cannot use tapered steering tube, which is the part of the fork. All right? And the last thing is, you already know I'm replacing triple crankset into 1x9 drivetrain. So I will be replacing the shifter too. You don't want to have the thing I have on this bike, but usually you will, which is integrated shifter and braking lever. That means I cannot remove this shifter from this braking lever and put new shifter. I could just leave this one and put additional shifter right here and just not use this one. It won't look very nice. And so I need to replace at least the braking lever. I have the whole brake, but replacing the lever only, since I already have hydraulic system, I could just put this one here and then my new shifter, right? So that's something you wanna have in mind. So if you are in search for the budget bike first, just check those 4 things, and it would be nice to have clamp for lever, braking lever, and another clamp for the shifter. That's it. It does make sense to replace these things, but of course the cheapest and the first thing I replace on this bike, and it made sense, is the one I'm showing you on my YouTube channel. See you there.